everyone. Hope you're having a great start to your week. Thanks for tuning in to the American Digital Network studio. I'm Haley Outen, and today we have an all-new episode of Mondays with Mike coming your way. Mike, great to see you here in the studio, and I'm excited to talk to you today because there were some great games in conference play last week. And let's start off by going to Wichita, where they had to take on a couple of the Texas teams in the American, and these two teams, they picked up some pretty key wins.
Yeah, good wins for SMU and Houston, but Wichita State suffers back-to-back conference losses for the first time since 2013. But don't panic, Shocker faithful. You guys will be just fine. I'll explain why later in the show. But you have to give a lot of credit to SMU. It was a shaky night for the Shockers. Wichita State had no answer for preseason American Conference Player of the Year, Shake Milton, who was tremendous in the ball screen situations. Milton was unstoppable, dropped a career-high 33 points in the Mustangs' first road win over a top 10 team since 1982. It's hard to understate the magnitude of that win for SMU. The Mustangs had dropped 3 straight games in a row, but now they have 3 wins over top 25 opponents and its first true road win of the season. SMU needed that win. They got that win for their resume. Huge for Coach Jankovic and company. And then, on the 50th anniversary of the game of the century, Houston's upset win over top-ranked UCLA back in 1968 at the Astrodome, the current Houston Cougars team completely dominated Wichita State. After being dismantled by the Shockers earlier in conference play, Houston played like an NCAA at-large team and soundly beat Wichita State in Houston, and they did it with defense. They held the Shockers to shooting 4 for 20 from the three-point line and held Landry Shamet to only 7 points. It was Houston's first win over a top 10 opponent since beating number 3 Memphis back in 1996. If Houston continues to play like this throughout the conference play, they're going to play themselves into an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament, and they're going to end up being one of the second, third, or fourth best teams in the American Conference. Coach Sampson has the Cougars playing great basketball right now.
All right, Mike, well, let's move on down to your neck of the woods in Orlando. The Knights, they got some great news this week. BJ Taylor was back. He returned against Cincinnati, but then some bad news come the end of the week and losing Taco Fall for the remainder of the season. How will this impact the Knights moving forward?
Well, you certainly don't replace Taco Fall with one individual player or scheme. I mean, that is a very difficult task. This UCF team has been decimated by injuries over the course of the year. Even at the beginning of the year, they lost Aubrey Dawkins, who is going to be a future NBA player. That's Coach Johnny Dawkins' son. He would have been a starter. BJ Taylor only played in 1 game. He missed 16 games with an ankle injury and a foot injury. And then they lost Chance McSpadden for a number of games as well with a sprained ankle. A.J. Davis went down with a sprained ankle a few days before they played USF. And they finally got BJ Taylor back. So just a brutal, brutal stretch for UCF and Johnny Dawkins, but it's no excuses. You have to step up and make plays. Now that UCF has BJ Taylor back, he was the difference in that game versus USF. They need to find other ways to score without going inside the Taco Fall. Taylor led all scorers with 25 points. 16 of those came in the second half, and he hit big shot after big shot, especially in the last 5 minutes of the game. But how do you replace Taco Fall? You have to do it by committee, and you have to have one of your post players step up and play big. That post player was Chad Brown. He delivered another double-double for the UCF Knights. It was his second double-double of his career. He went 6 of 8 from the field and matched a career-high 13 points and tied a career-high with 10 rebounds. He was terrific. Chad Brown is going to have to be a major focal point, not just defensively for UCF, but offensively as well moving forward. That was a big win for UCF to prove that they can play without Taco Fall. A good win over in Tampa versus a much improved USF team.
And always, the war on I-4 just seems to carry a little bit more significance, taking the conference win aside. So, big win for the Knights. But, Mike, when you take a look at the conference standings, Cincinnati seems to be the team that everyone's going to be chasing at this point. But Temple, a team sitting in 10th place right now, and we've seen the wins that they were capable of coming up with this season. 9 teams in the top 100 RPI. How interesting is this going to make the tournament come March?
Well, I think it's going to be awesome for us fans because it's just really great basketball. You're right about Temple. It is one of the strangest teams in the country because their RPI is incredible. If you look at their RPI, they have a 45 RPI. That's 3rd in the American Conference. They have the most wins over RPI top 25 teams. They have 2 wins. That's the most in the American Conference. Cincinnati has an RPI of 25, Wichita State has an RPI of 27, and then Temple is 3rd at 45. Rounding out the rest of the group, it's Houston, SMU, UCF, UConn, Tulane, and Memphis all have top 100 RPIs. So as we look at postseason play, I really feel that the American Conference will have 4 teams in the NCAA tournament. I think Cincinnati, Wichita State, and SMU are locks for the at-large bid, and I think Houston is that bubble team that can play their way into the NCAA tournament. UCF, UConn, Tulane, and Memphis will all be fighting for NIT spots, obviously unless something happens in the conference tournament or they get more wins inside of the regular season. I think you might have 7 to 8 teams playing in postseason play come March and April. It's an exciting time for the American Conference, and that's so important because of the addition of Wichita State. It adds extra opportunities for teams like Houston, like SMU, who may be on the bubble, to grab a big-time RPI win. And Wichita State, it also benefits them because in conference play, they have more chances to grab RPI top 100 wins as well because of the fact that they're going up against Temple and UCF and Cincinnati and SMU in a consistent basis. It really, really helps Wichita State's resume as well.
So, Mike, you mentioned Memphis being in the top 100 for that RPI, a team sitting in the middle of the pack in the conference standings. Now entering this year, so many new faces on this roster. Tubby Smith in his 2nd season. What's been your overall impression of the Tigers this season?
Well, my impression is that Tubby Smith is a Hall of Fame coach. You take 8 new players and you try to instill an offense that you're not really sure about. But it's back to basics for Tubby Smith offensively and defensively, and Memphis has responded. And since that difficult stretch of losing 3 games in a row, 2 conference games in a row, Memphis has won 4 out of their last 5, and they're playing like a top 5 conference team. A defense that was struggling is now holding its opponents below 38% shooting 4 out of the last 5 games. And they had only done that once in the first 14 games of the year. The Tigers had only 3 games in its first 15 where they shot 47%. But with the addition of a simpler motion-based offensive scheme put into place by Tubby Smith, the Tigers have now hit that mark in 4 straight games, shooting over 47% from the field. Back to basics on both ends of the floor. A simpler offense has created a more efficient offense for the Tigers, and they are playing their best basketball of the year at a perfect time in the gritty part of conference play.
So, Mike, let's move on to this portion of the show, becoming a trend each week, talking about potential Player of the Year candidates. In the first couple of weeks, the names that you've mentioned are Landry Shamet and Rob Gray Jr., but this week, I know you want to talk about Shake Milton from SMU. I mean, I think he's proven that he's a game changer, but kind of a unique opportunity because he was picked to be the preseason Player of the Year, so a lot of pressure coming into this season. Can he follow through and get this postseason honor too?
Sniper Shake is having a great year, averaging over 18 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, shooting lights out from 3 and the free throw line. I love his game. He's one of my favorite point guards in the country. His big strengths is he's a tall point guard. He's 6'6", but doesn't play slow. He's got a long wingspan. He is a great three-point shooter, shooting over 40% from three with deep range. But one of my favorite things about his game is that he is almost unstoppable in the pick and roll situation, which is great for the NBA skill set. NBA scouts and general managers love his ability to attack downhill off of a ball screen. He is dynamic. He's versatile. He can guard multiple positions on the defensive end because of his height, his length, and his quickness. And he is a phenomenal passer. He's got great vision. He can throw every kind of pass, a lob pass, skip pass, and he hits cutters on the dime. He's closing in on becoming a top 10 all-time scorer in the American Conference. He's 6th all-time in the American Conference in assists. He's 4th all-time in the conference in made three-point field goals. Simply put, Shake Milton is one of the best players in the history of the American Conference, and he's going to be making a lot of money at the next level.
All right, Mike, final thoughts on the week. What games are you most looking forward to?
Two big games on Thursday. You have to look over at SMU at UConn. First one, and the reason is because SMU is playing great ball. UConn needs a win. They are struggling, but UConn has great guards and they can score. That's the one thing that how they can beat SMU is you can't play SMU in a tight, close ball game because SMU does not turn the ball over and they don't beat themselves. You have to outshoot SMU. Jalen Adams will need a big game for the Huskies to upset SMU at home. On the same day, UCF travels to Wichita State. The Shockers need a win desperately. They were 0-2 last week, losing to Houston and SMU, and UCF needs to prove themselves in that they can win games on the road without Taco Fall. It was a battle in Tampa versus USF, their first game without Taco Fall, but now you give Coach Johnny Dawkins almost a week to game plan for Wichita State. They have to adjust their offensive and defensive scheme playing without the big fella, but A.J. Davis should be back for that game. Wichita State needs to be ready for a faster UCF team in that matchup. And little side note, Wichita State's head assistant coach, Donnie Jones, the former head coach of UCF, should be able to provide some unique insight on that game. Then a couple days later on Saturday, Cincinnati, undefeated in conference play, travels to Memphis, who is playing some of the best ball of their season. The Bearcats are 6-0, and the Tigers are winners of 4 of their last 5. Memphis at home shoots the ball very well, and they are playing great basketball. Tubby Smith has the Tigers firing on all cylinders, and this is a trap game for Cincinnati because if you looked at the Tigers' first couple games in conference play, they're not the same team. Cincinnati needs to be ready to go. Coach Cronin will have their team prepped, and you love getting road wins in conference play. Big game on Saturday for the Bearcats and the Tigers.
Definitely some great games to look forward to. But, Mike, I think you forgot to mention one game. We have to embarrass him a little bit here. You have a game on Sunday. Mike is actually on the call on CBS Sports Network for SMU versus East Carolina. I know I'll be tuning in to watch you call that game. But, Mike, what stands out to you the most about this matchup as you kind of start preparing and researching for this game?
Yeah, great guard play. Thank you for the humble brag, Haley. I appreciate it. Very excited for the opportunity. But great guard play in that game. And you have Shake Milton, Jimmy Witt, Jeray Foster for SMU, B.J. Tyson, Kentrell Barkley for East Carolina. You have 2 great scoring backcourts. So, to be honest with you, sometimes the 2 great backcourts will nullify each other out, and it becomes the post play of the most important. Look for the team who wins the rebounding margin on Sunday to be the victor at Moody Coliseum.
All right, guys, we'll tune into that game again, 2 p.m. Eastern, CBS Sports Network. Sunday, you get to watch this guy, Mike O'Donnell, call it. Mike, as always, thanks for joining us here in the studio and providing us with your awesome insight as we look forward to another week of conference play. So thanks a lot.
Can't wait for another great week. Thank you, Haley.
All right, we'll see you back here next Monday. And as for all of you, thanks so much for tuning in to an all-new episode of Mondays with Mike. We'll see you back here next week.